it's Laura Sims with Your Career Homecoming. I'm here with our wonderful client, Faith. Hi, Faith.
Hi, everyone.
So glad to spend some time with you and catch up and hear a little bit about your story. Would you time travel us back to before your career homecoming, just to give us some context? What was going on in your life? What was happening in your career? Can you set the scene?
For sure. My first go round with uh, Your Career Homecoming, or YCH as we call it, um, I was in Atlanta. I was working um, with a film and Broadway director. I was also working uh, kind of on multiple sets, coming from LA, working in the film world. I had friends who would, reach out like, "Hey, there's a production that's going to be happening. Are you available?" And if I was, I would jump on those sets as well because there's never too much experience. And I was trying to really just get all the experience I could get. Um, that was kind of, boots on the ground, what I was doing. But I have this saying that friends have let me know, which is essentially, I feel like, we are meant for more. You're meant for more than you can see or, even like imagine for yourself. And that's what I was feeling before YCH. I was really feeling this sense of there's more that I could be doing. There's more that should be happening, in my life. And in that moment, really, it was just more professionally, just, to be clear, like there's just more that I knew I needed to be about, but I just couldn't see what that more looked like or how to access it. Um, I I've always known myself to be someone of high potential, but in that moment, I just, felt lost in terms of direction. I remember a conversation I had with my dad, where he was checking on me and was like, "Are you going out? Are you doing, are you doing this? Have you made friends yet?" And and I thought it was so funny because this is the same person who taught me like better to have like five solid good friends who are going somewhere than to have a bunch of people that who ain't doing, fill in the expletive, And so I remember telling him, actually, no, my circle is very small and it's on purpose. I was like, even where I live is because I want to be reminded of where I'm going and where I'm trying to go. All of these things need to kind of work together. And right now, I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
Um, that's how I was feeling before YCH. It's like, I don't know, it's almost like something's tapping on my shoulder and saying, what you're doing, do not settle. Do not, this is not enough. And I think a lot of people probably just saw me as, and even a friend said this as lovingly, she's like, "You're just never satisfied." And I'm like, that may be true, but that's not what this is, you know?
Yeah.
I just knew.
I think that's a very familiar sensation for a lot of our clients is it doesn't have direction yet, but there is this internal, I not in an ego way even, but
No,
I feel
it's a
like I'm
restlessness.
trapped in a shell and that there's just I'm capable of there's some expansion that needs to happen. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you get that that nudge that
Mm-hmm.
there's some expansion needs to happen. What do you try to do to figure that out?
So again, prior to YCH, I'm a reader. I feel like I read as many books as I could. I was, I had subscriptions, online subscriptions to whether it was Inc.com, Fast Company, all these different, I was definitely, watching and reading and listening to these sort of, self-help or leadership type, um, lean in and do something that matters and, start with why I was all of that. But I remember I, would read these things or hear these things and um, even the some tools that were immediately actionable, like be vicious about editing, your life in terms of anything and anyone that's not helping you kind of like move in that tunnel vision focus, remove it. Don't do it, and don't engage. Habit stacking. Before Atomic Habits, I was doing all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and he but there was always something off,
Yeah.
so I feel like, okay, I'm leaning in, or I've been leaning in, but I don't feel like you're talking to me.
Right.
you know, this doesn't apply. It's only, just kind of like, so much, so I'm following these so-called, I don't know, traditional things, to do, work hard, show up, blah, blah, blah. I still just really felt disconnected. I feel like those approaches just weren't working for me, and it didn't make sense. I didn't
This
understand,
is
why isn't this working?
This is also so common, and to be fair to things like Start With Why and Lean In and the Atomic Habits, there's some good advice, I think in
Great
perspective.
advice.
None of them were created to solve the problem that you're trying to solve for. Right? And I think because there's so few resources that are truly dedicated to solving this problem, we go, this is what I did when I was in my own career crisis, is I'm reading all these other books and saying like, Elizabeth Gilbert, why can't you save me? And like what
Why isn't that
my
magic?
favorite, person over on this topic, you're not helping me either. Like I get your perspective, but I don't like it's not applying to this question, right? So
Thank you.
I relate to
Yeah.
that frustration too. Okay. Okay. Um, you find your way to your career homecoming. What happens once you're in the program and you get a solution that is designed to solve this problem?
Oh, gosh, I still remember, our calls and, even being part of the Facebook group, um, most memorably, the tower that we had to do. That really stands out for me. I still reference it till today. Um, but I would probably say YCH kind of gave me an introduction to myself that I didn't know, that I didn't know I needed. It gave me like a language for, okay, let me back up. I remember, having to reach out to friends to get this sort of varied view. How am I seen? Like, how do you see me? Like, be just be truthful. Discovering, my strengths or having them affirmed. Like I feel like I came into ICH pretty aware, of what I was good at, what I was innately like strong, in. But YCH really, you helped us, I think, sort of synthesize, bring all these different pieces together. So it's like, these are my strengths. This is my personality. These are sort of like my abilities, is what I can do. This is my, these are my areas of flow. These are the spaces where I kind of step into that flow space for me. Um, this is what I value. This is my value. That like bust open, I feel like a universe, a whole new space that I had not been in before. Which I thought was so funny later, ironically, that, my fresh out of film school, what I did, and still forever, my favorite job still, it was hard. I had no life, but I learned so much. Um, I had a boss slash mentor who saw my strengths and he just let me fly. I just had to kind of have the deliverables. And as a result, our relationship just really grew. So with YCH, it was similar, but it was now even more clear. It wasn't just like, you know, figure it out the way do it how you would work or follow how you work and, come back with the answers. It was also like, here's who you are, here's how you present, here's how you speak, here's what you're looking for. Um, and then there was also sort of like this formatting of look for it's like you see this mirror and then it said you've said flip it around and go look for what you called my right people that pretty much kind of like mirror back to me these things that I have now discovered about myself, these things that I have now synthesized to have a better understanding of, not just how I show up, but how to show up, and how to engage. Um, yeah, that is, I think for me was really, it was game changing. I left YCH and landed at OWN, to just put it to you that way.
And for people
Because
who are like, "What's own?"
OWN, OWN is Oprah Winfrey Network.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, so just so you can see like night and day, you know?
right.
Um,
And given that you were working in film and television before,
mhm.
so it wasn't like, "I'm gonna do a 180, and now
Whole
I'm a dental assistant." Um, what I guess when it's not an enormous, change like that, for you, what's the biggest value of having all of this stuff clarified and dialed in?
I think it comes down to, once again, how you show up, and sort of how you contribute. It's less about how you're perceived. I think that weight fell off a bit. Actually, I think it fell off a lot, to be quite honest. Um, because I remember repeatedly, those were some of the things that peers would say to me, you know. There was a way that I would engage that was very kind of like, and I used to say this too before YCH, that I wanted like a goal for myself was to be seated within myself. I felt like there was like a seat, but in my mind it was like this throne, like I'm sitting in it, but I'm seated in me. And I believe that by the time I was at OWN, that seatedness was happening and others could, also see it or experience it.
Yeah.
If, that makes sense.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think there are some people who are very distracted by the tactical parts of career change. What's happening on my resume? What's happening on my LinkedIn? Am I pinging my network enough? And there's a call for that. But I
Yeah.
think what you're talking about is people noticed a change how you held yourself and how
Hmm.
you entered a room. And there's things like that that I don't care how good your paperwork is. Eventually, you're going to have to be in an interview and you're going to have to be in a room with other people. And how's your presence?
And I think YCH did that for me. I think okay, I'm going to be, you know what? It is what it is. It's all about the right people. So I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And here it is. You mentioned like the resume, the profile, like all of that. You're right. It is important. But that's what they are, tactical things. I also think that something needs to be happening or already kind of be in place. On some level, you either already are this sort of kind of person who wants more or has some ability to some level of dial into your intuition, to bring you to YCH. I don't think that if you're just about the tactical and you're just about, I don't know, I'm a marketing guru or I'm this, if that's all, I don't necessarily think that YCH is going to attract you.
They don't sign up. they, they
Well, there you
don't.
go.
It's like we're talking on two different planes and never
And
get
that's what
to
they
the point.
are.
It
And that
never it never clicks.
and
Mm-mm.
that's what they are. You operate in a very different plane. And that's also something, honestly, that I really loved when I discovered you. It was like, "Oh my gosh, she comes from the entertainment world. This is awesome." But not just because I had that, you know, thing to connect with you about, but I think what a lot of people don't quite know unless you're in the, in the business or in that world, there's a level of, like, internal work that you have to do to be able to show up in that space. It's not all the glamour and the glitz and the lights that you see. It is intense, and it there is I have a friend, who is an actress, and I remember watching her and the metamorphosis that occurred. She was always very sort of like, she spoke her mind, candid, kind, genuine person. But I saw her kind of dig into who am I even more, begin to own it. There's a space that you have to go within yourself to find kind of almost like what you're made of in order to come back out and really shine within that world. And I think that as I watched her do that, I wanted to be able to, like, okay, I'm not an actress. So I can't really do the things that she's doing that's helping her get there. But I know that I have my own path. I've always known that. Even in film school, I just had a sense that my path is not the same as these people. you know?
I do think there are some parallels, not that, like, I'm having y'all do acting exercises or anything,
No,
although that would be fun. But, there is some, especially if you are going to do anything generative where you're pulling something out into the world that didn't exist
keyword.
before,
Mhm.
the parallel to acting is in acting, you've got to be so vulnerable to let people see you at both your worst and your best. And then it's rejection, 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 rejection again. And I mean, just like daily, more than being seen, more than approval, more than
Wow.
praise. And I think that building those kind of dual resiliencies and vulnerabilities, um, I think there's some of that in here.
And I think that is part of the power of YCH. You require that, you encourage that, you nurture, and you kind of I remember just sort of you led us along. And it wasn't therapy, but it was absolutely like, this is a place for vulnerability. You can't do this work without, showing all of you. You can't do this work. You can't get farther without showing up and being willing to see what's there to be seen. I remember that. I remember fighting you a few times. We'd get off a call and I'd be like, oh, especially when you said, like, I remember you suggesting meditation to me. And I was like, okay, and then I remember waking up one morning and going, like, daggone it, like, I'm investing in myself. Just do it. Don't question, trust the process. Fine. First few times, okay. But after some time, I was like, "Oh, this lady knows what she's talking what? Okay. What?" That was where, for me, the vision started to grow of, like, return to LA. The it just this it just kept coming back, and each time I came back, it not only came back, the vision expanded. It started from like this, and then it kind of just grew and grew and grew until I had a clarity about, "Here's what needs to happen. I need to go back there, and then I need to go find the platforms that Laura says are out there that reflect what I've now learned about myself,
Yeah.
as opposed to just finding a job."
Yep. Yep. And just to be clear, the program is not me telling people to go meditate, right? Like
No, no, no,
that's
it's
not
not.
like
Absolutely not.
but
It
there
was just
is, there is this heart work, there is this inner work. There is
exactly.
I don't I'm hesitant to say it's spiritual, but like I think it borders on that realm if people are open to that. Um
And it
And
wasn't like you were asking all of us to meditate. This was a direct response
you.
to a question I asked, and I had also shared, again, vulnerability. I'm stressing. I'm dealing with a lot of stress. I'm really not sure where it's coming from. And you kind of probing, and then you and it wasn't like, "You gotta go do this." You suggested, you said, "This is what I do." And I was just, again, I'm just telling you where my brain was. I heard it and I was like, "That's great. That's what you do." That's you know, I pray. I'm good. Thank you,
Right.
But it's really expanded. It's like someone just, hearing for the first time, "Have you ever considered therapy?" And again, from where where I'm from, it's like, "What? You just soldier on. We're strong people." Also have learned, like, you know what? I don't want to be Superwoman. There is no sign. I have never met God didn't come down from on high and say, "Faith, you are of a people that are supposed to be, you just take it all because you're strong." No. Therefore, I'm gonna get all the help I can get emotionally. And I think that's what YCH really taught me. Growing inwardly and growing outwardly are not mutually exclusive.
Yes. Yes. And I think to your point about like you told me to consider meditation is that is I think also one of the benefits of work in a relationship like this, right? So if I felt confident that I could write a book and just be like, here, people, go do this, and this will,
Right.
I would do it. I got no belief that that is that's going to do what a mentorship and coaching relationship can do because um, you do have someone who's observing you and seeing your patterns and really listening to what you say and listening to what you're not saying
Yeah.
and can help nurture the individual you.
Yeah. You said it. Um, I will also add, as you're talking, I realize YCS was also my first like investment in myself in the sort of like career, not in the career, space. Cause like I said, I'm reading all these things. I attended a bunch of, workshops and webinars or whatever, but this sort of dedicated coaching that is looking at me, like I'm the sole focus. And like you hear, okay, these are the deliverables or these are the outcomes, and you're like, okay, this is the promise, but you don't really, it's not that there's not buy-in, you just don't see it because you haven't seen it. You know what I mean? You can't see what you haven't seen until you get to the other side and you're like, oh, I remember again, like getting here, it was actually before I got back to LA. Um, I wrote a blog post about my experience with YCH. And I linked to your site because it was that impactful for me. And I just wanted people to know, like, it's not just enough to like, you know I can do all these things, or I'm an ENFP, or I'm a type 4, whatever. You have to know, like there's all of these things about you, and you need to be able to look at them all sort of like almost as like one big text and see, like you said, the patterns. And you
Yes.
can't do that on your own. You need help to, observe that and synthesize that, and then, know sort of, okay, now that I know this about myself. Because there's still the question of, okay, what now? And YCH gives you that, the what now,
Yeah.
you know? It doesn't do it for you, but it gets you to that space where it's like, okay, well, I know what to do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, to kind of bring us full circle, if there's someone watching, listening, who's in their own I'm meant for more moment, they have that almost a divine discomfort that I know I can do more. I know I can be more. What would your words of encouragement be around trusting that voice?
It would be, and this I actually got in my second round um, of YCH. I think people should know YCH is not, what's the word I'm looking, static. It's not a static thing. But my, um, yeah, second round with you in the program called Treehouse is where I realized, oh, this is this is was the kind of the disconnect, so to speak, for me. Because yes, I stepped away from after, the first round. I had these tools and I definitely put them into action. But life happens, you know? And in that space of life happening and me trying to also happen, because I also very much, that's another, I don't know, belief I have. Life happens, well, so do I. Me, life, you life, and faith, faith will faith. I'm here too. So um I just know by the time I came to Treehouse, there was I had drifted from my mega tower, from my vision of myself, that, that memory, that it faded. Um, and there was just a lot going on that, I guess, with that sort of pile up, being back home in YCH in the company of others building and creating, just, it was like, it's like learning to ride your bike again. You haven't picked it up in a long time and you pick it back up and you remember the love of, of this thing that you had and what it did for you and so on and so forth. And as I took it back up, it just sort of opened me up to, okay, these are the things that, yes, even as life was lifing in my attempts to sort of fight back, I was developing ideas. I was, and I don't know if I'm sure you remember when I came to Treehouse. I think I had like, I made a deck. I had a deck. And I presented my deck like, these are all the things that I'm thinking about doing. These are the things that, I've been like just wrestling with. I just don't know what comes first. And I remember sitting in my coach Shannon. She was just like, wow, wow, okay, this is a lot. But she still took it and was like, you're not gonna do all of these things here or at once. That's not That is not humanly possible, Faith. But this is great because it tells us where you are. You are a creative, you are a creator. Awesome. We just need to now figure out, okay, what's going to be the one that you open the door with? And so we did that. And the funny thing was, as we were doing this other thing kept also, it was just so smooth. So I ended up building kind of like these two ventures within Treehouse. And it was so cool. But it wasn't that I'm building this that was, of course, it was cool, but it wasn't that really solidified things for me. It was this sense that, because I came back to, well, what happened between the first time and the second time? And I realized it's the consistency, um, the need for consistent, constant guidance um, in my career. Because, like I said, I go to therapy regularly. And so this, I think, second go round really birthed in me not just the things that I'm building, but an added value, I guess, of self-investment.
Mhm.
Like, this is gonna go on when I make my budget, every year or every month or whatever, this is gonna go right in there. It's not gonna be like, yeah, we all know we should save, but sometimes we get, oh, this is, we'll save next month. No, this is going to have its own line item and it will receive, just like I pay rent, this is my rent. This is my rent to my future. Future faith requires this.
Yeah.
And if I don't pay this rent of this investment, this commitment to myself by being in a program like YCH, by being um, accessed and accessible and knowing that, it's there for me and resourcing it, then I have to be okay with knowing that future faith may just never show up. And that I'm not okay with that. I can tell you right now. Because
I
why am I doing this?
I think and I think the way you're framing this as an investment in yourself is really wise because I know there can be a feeling of like the money's going. But when you put your money in your Roth IRA, you're investing it and it will grow for you. And when you invest your money in yourself wisely,
Wisely.
um, you're 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 gonna grow, you're gonna expand, you're gonna create opportunity. As someone
Yeah.
who regularly invests in their own career, it just I'm with you. Is future Laura gonna we gonna do what's up here and what's in here, or are we not? And it just takes support to get there sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always, the middle between where you are and where you want to be. And, the thing that sort of I think brings them closer and closer together is that support. Um, you can't cut it out. You
Yeah.
can't, I know for myself, um, I think that's probably the biggest thing for me that I would say in my professional career, seeing the need for and the lack of support in terms of the vision I have for myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do I have friends? Yes. Do they love me? Absolutely. Do I have peers and even sort of, mentor like figures who think the world of me? Yes. But again, I always had this sense of like, they cannot speak to what I am trying to do. I
Mhm.
need somebody who is either on their way and actually not either, who is ahead of me, who's been where I want to go, and so that I can like learn from them. They can go, I did that, don't do this. Go right, keep straight. And then also have a community of people who are doing what I'm also doing. That is the greatest, I think, sort of takeaways from YCH that you can learn. You learn about yourself, you learn what you need, and then you learn about the commitment that is necessary for you to realize, that goal that, has been trying to speak to you from within
Yeah.
yourself, and that
Yeah.
if it's going to, I don't, if you're going to help it and flesh itself, you you got to speak to it, and the speaking to it is that guidance, that coaching, that your career needs it. Period.
Absolutely. Okay. You're making me want to reopen Treehouse. So people are like, "What's this Treehouse thing?" It's just this
Listen,
experiment we ran for 6 months with some alums we wanted to see, and
it
it
was
was pretty great. And you're
necessary.
you're making me want to want to want to do it again because
It
yeah.
was, it is necessary.
Mhm.
I don't know what your thinking or your timeline is, but I would not shut the door on it. I know that there are, and I've been saying this more in recent years. Like, I know that there are nations behind me. I cannot fail them. Um, so even on those days when I feel like, you know what, future faith, I'm gonna need you to just, chill, relax, hold on. Just, you can read me tomorrow, but I am exhausted. And then she says, okay, what about the next gens? That's when I'm like, oh, I do have siblings. I do have a younger brother and sister who think like, I can fly to the moon and back without a parachute, so I better do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and your heart and your your insight into what your experience of all this has been. I think it's going to speak to a lot of folks. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for sticking with your career homecoming. Thank you for building it, as you have consistently, continuously, relentlessly. Your energy, your love, your quiet grace and guidance is necessary. You are by no means fragile or weak. You are a force to be reckoned with. And yet you have a way of coming forth and guiding, aiding, just with kindness, um, wisdom that is not overbearing. It's not woo woo. And even for those of us, who are experiencing something the first time that may feel like, oh, this is some different stuff. Again, you defy, I think, expectations just in how you show up. And it's your authenticity, I think, that also allows for YCH to keep growing. We want to have for ourselves what you have clearly discovered and owned more and more for yourself through YCH. That is visible. I know that I want that for me. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.